person and are privileged to have amongst us a galaxy of esteemed speakers and guests for the summit. So without further delay, let's begin with our inaugural session. Today, we are honored to have with us some distinguished experts for the inaugural session. May I please request Mr. Manish Singhal, the Deputy Secretary General, FICCI, to deliver the opening remarks, please. Should I call him on stage? I would also request Mr. Ranjan Mahapatra, Chair FICCI HR Committee, Director HR Indian Oil Corporation Limited, on the stage, please. I would also request Mr. Manoj Sharma, Joint President and CHRO, Aarti Industries, to please join us on stage for the inaugural session. Welcoming Mr. Manish Singhal for his opening remarks.
Morning, everyone. Morning to a very good weather in Delhi. So you all, if from outside Delhi, are really lucky, or let me say, you all have got us good weather. Yeah, slightly inconvenient because I think a lot of us are really getting late, and some speakers who are joining us for the afternoon sessions, their flights are stuck. But nevertheless, special welcome, other than you all, to our chair of FICCI HR committee, Mr. Ranjan Mahapatra, Mr. Manoj Sharma, who is a member of the committee but president and CHRO of Aarti Industries. Change is the only constant, and that's a cliche today. Nobody needs to understand or reiterate it more. But what's happening is that today the pace of change is much faster, be it due to a pandemic or be it due to disruptive business models or due to climate change issues. So in a way, we have no option but to actually keep on improvising, ideating, and in effect, innovating. This is the future of work for every role and responsibility in every organization, to my mind. And that's what brings us here today for the FICCI's Innovation Summit, which is a regular feature now on our calendar. The Innovation Summit is spearheaded by FICCI's HR committee, whose chair, of course, we have Mr. Ranjan Mahapatra, and our co-chair, Ms. Anu Rajdhan. The idea behind the whole Innovation Summit actually comes up from a research which says 90% of the organizations do feel that innovation is the only way forward. But only 6% still feel today, or let's say as of a year back when this survey was done, that we are going where we want to be in terms of innovation. So the value of all of us being here today cannot be reiterated more. And perhaps that's why Steve Jobs once said, innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower. Picking up on this, for many years, FICCI and in general our HR committee has been working on how to make innovation as a culture in any organization. How should organizations structure themselves to make innovation part of its, let's say, part of its blood, part of its culture, part of the way they do everything in the organization. So in October 2020, when we launched FICCI's first startup initiative, which provides a wide range of services and benefits to Indian startups, this itself came in the backdrop of FICCI's Startup and Innovation Growth Program, which we started in 2008. It obviously started very slow with partners like USAID and Lockheed Martin and Tata's. But today, a whole set of corporate sector is encouraging it. Now, that's basically because these startups focus mainly on innovation, innovative business models. Yes, a lot of them are technology led, but they also focus on social impact innovations. So innovations, in a way, come in every part of our life. So this Innovation Summit has, I think, rightly been created or curated around the theme creative disruption, creative resurrection. So to delve more into this, we have four tracks this year. The track one, which is presented more in terms of a fireside chat between our co-chair Ms. Anu Razdan and Mr. Suresh Narayanan of Nestle. This is going to look at how transformation helps driving innovation in organizations. The track two, which is on organization design and capability, is being led by Mr. Rajiv Dubey and Ms. Hem Kanwar of Accenture. The track three is being led by Ms. Amita Maheshwari of Star Dictionary and Ms. Veena Sarup. This is going to talk of culture of equality and inclusiveness, which drives innovation. And the track four, which is led by Ms. Raj Kamal, will discuss the role of technology as an enabler in driving culture of innovation. So technology, like I said, is an enabler. It's not really the only thing which leads to innovation. With that, I would like to just thank all the committee members who made this innovation summit happen today. We will definitely have it every year as part of a FICCI flagship program. We also thank all our HR committee members who are present here today or are joining virtually, and of course, all the other industry people who've shown interest in being part of this culture of innovation. Before I end, special thanks to some of our sponsors for the event today, which is Indian Oil Corporation, Hindustan Unilever, Aarti Industries, and Epic Content. I wish you all a very good day of deliberations today and have a nice day in Delhi, whoever is from outside Delhi. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Singhal. I would please request Mr. Manish Singhal to please felicitate Mr. Ranjan Mahapatra and Mr. Manoj Sharma. May I now please request Mr. Ranjan Mahapatra to please deliver the inaugural address?
Sharma ji, Anu, Suresh, Rajiv, and all other friends who are all sitting in this audience. Very good morning to you. I think we are leaving the theme today, disruption. So today morning, I think we saw a bit of a disruptions. I think I was very worried whether Anu will make it or not because she has to travel by air. And I got a call from airport that the flights have been all cancelled and most of the flights have been diverted. So this is what is disruption. So once again, very good morning to all of you and welcome to this we are calling it Innovation Summit. I must first give credit to Rajiv, during whose period I think we started the first Innovation Summit. He was the chair, so this has been carried forward. Today is the third Innovation Summit, and I think probably as far as the importance of innovation is concerned, we need not ask any questions. And I am personally happy because in my core values of my company, innovation plays an important role. We have four core values: care, innovation, passion, and trust. And innovation plays one of the most important roles in that. And in fact, one of the years, the same year when we had our first innovation summit, that year was declared by us as Year of Innovation. Coming next, I must also compliment, I know, I mean, a lot of efforts have gone into organize this, and there was an insistence of having a face-to-face conference. At least the summit should be face-to-face and should be physical. And I know I was one of the advocates telling Mrityunjay, telling Anu also, we were discussing, whenever we were discussing that let us go for a safer one. But of course, we all know that physical conference has its own charm, and finally we have made it. So thanks to the entire team here. They have done. I mean, as a committee, we have only seen it from a distance and tried to pick holes in their plannings and suggest something else. Otherwise, every work was done by Britannia and Vinny and entire team of FICCI. So thanks to each one of you. Uh, the top, I mean, the theme which has been taken, in fact, disruption is the key. I mean, I'm going not further for that. What is exactly creative disruptions and disruption, how we can resurrect? I think disruption is the key. Probably we have seen the, I mean, centuries or ages largest disruption in form of COVID for each one of us. I mean, when all of us were stuck at home, all of us didn't know how to respond to that, but it happened. But it has also thrown lots of new opportunities for many. In addition to that, the people who were ready in a few respects, I think probably the tracks which have been kept, and you will be also hearing from Suresh how Nestle have done it, how many other companies. I think Deloitte study says that how people responded to this particular disruptions and how they came over it. That shows that fundamentals do matter. One more point. Just you remember, you have to be agile. You have to be agile in any place. You have to be nimble-footed. You have to. I mean, none of us knew how to respond to our construction of pipelines, which is a completely, physical work which had to be carried out. None of us knew how to supply LPG cylinders to your residences during that period. None of us ever guessed how we will make it, but we made it. And it was made because the workforce was agile, the process was agile, and finally, I mean, in one given day, can you believe 33 lakh cylinders were delivered at your homes? Yeah, I think claps to banta hi hai. It's an effort, because when we are talking about pandemic, what are we really talking? We are talking no physical contacts. But how a LPG cylinder has to be delivered at your home if it is not physically delivered at your place? Somebody, the delivery boy, has to carry it. So he has to be protected. He has to be in the same frame of mind, and in a good frame of mind rather, so that he does not feel threatened. And the back, whatever logistics you have, right back up to the refinery, everything has to work so that this can be done. So anyway, this is one. And you have to adapt to the new technologies which has come in, which has been done by, and many of the companies which adapted to the new norms of working, new norms of workforce, new norms of work life, or new norms of workers, have survived, have succeeded. And of course, finally, at the end of it, you must align to the purpose. What exactly we want to do. I mean, as a public sector, we had a huge responsibility there during that point of time. I know, in India, lockdown happened on 24th of March. From 9th of April, first few days, of course, we all were not knowing, what exactly will happen, how we will, how we will proceed. Although refineries were running, or our terminals, bottling plants, everything was running. Nothing was stopped during that period. Even all of us started coming to office right from 9th April, and come Saturday, come Sunday, every day, at least the senior management was in office on all days. And why so? Because we were trying to align with the purpose of the organization, but as the overall purpose of the nation, that we had to meet the energy demand during that period of time. We had to ensure that fuel is supplied, because everything had to run, and then everything had to be met. You can't. Everybody was sitting at home. Everybody was cooking at home. Restaurants were not running, so everybody was at home. Or all the essential services were running. I can't stop any of the retail outlets anywhere. So anyway, disruptions definitely provide us an opportunity to respond in a different way. And these 3 A's, which I keep on saying everywhere, that this has sustained me in my personal life. It would be interesting for you all in personal life, as well as in professional life as well. So anyway, I think we have beautiful sessions lined up. The first one being the real fire with Suresh there, with Anu in the fireside chat, and many other tracks which have been already worked out. I am sure you all who are here, who have come here despite this disruptions which is happening outside. I faced three roadblocks on my route today. So normally I am always in time. So but at least 2 minutes delay was happened because three roadblocks. Trees are fallen. Anyway, nevertheless, all the best to all you all, and please try to involve yourself. Try to keep your minds and thinking system open during the entire course of the discussions today, and I'm sure you will get maximum out of it. Once again, thank you very much. Thanks to all of you, Manish, Shamaji, and all of you, Anu, entire committee of HR, committee of FICCI, and of course the organizers for organizing this despite all the problems. Please stay safe. Take care of yourself. The pandemic is not yet over. Let us take care of ourselves so that we can also take care of people all around us. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mahapatra, for setting the context. I would now like to welcome Mr. Manoj Sharma, Joint President and CHRO, Aarti Industries, for the concluding remarks.
Good morning, friends. And what a way to start the session from Mr. Singhal and Mr. Mohapatra to set the context. And I'm sure a lot of things will be available for each of you today. The way the tracks are designed, and Katsi, Mr. Rajiv, Anu, and all the HR committee members. A couple of things coming to my mind, with respect to the theme. A lot of startups have been successful during the pandemic. It has really emerged very powerfully, and they have really set the good foundation for the future for themselves. I am sure during the discussions today, some names will crop up. Number two, I think the appreciation for HR fraternity is now unquestionable for the future as well. There have been a lot of eyebrows raised to what they do. But, when Mr. Mohapatra talked about the cylinders delivery, I think it was completely about people. And people really, and the force behind them was those HR team members who are really invisible or not visible, during the normal course of the business. And they set the new normals and new standards every day and every now and then, and last 2.5, 3 years they are seen not only by the employees but employee family members as well. They've been recognized very powerfully. And I must say, I think the HR people has really innovated quite a lot of practices during this time. So when there is a need, I think the fertile minds really, come together and really bring up lot of powerful and sustainable solutions. And I am really happy to be really standing in front of you and, really, thinking about what we all did in my company. We were in the essential sector and producing chemicals for the pharma and for the food was essential part of the supply chain, and we did every bit of it, and I'm really pleased by our efforts. And I'll not take much time, and really I thank both the gentlemen on the dais for their wonderful opening session. I look forward to the whole day, and there are beautiful themes, during the day. Tracks have been planned, and please take away, have your questions ready, for all the discussions. I'm sure, you will not get the better, panel members and speakers in the present today. So I wish you all the best for the day, and I wish all the, speakers and panelists a great day ahead. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma, for your insightful address. With this, we come to an end for our inaugural session. I would like to thank Mr. Sharma and Mr. Mahapatra again. I would request Mr. Manish Singhal to please stay back on the stage. I would now request the presence of Ms. Anuradha Razdan, Co-Chair, FICCI HR Committee, Executive Director, HR, HUL, and CHRO, South Asia at Unilever South Asia. I would request Mr. Manish Singhal to please felicitate Ms. Razdan. Thank you, Mr. Singhal. Thank you. In the interest of time and without further ado, let's begin with today's first track titled Leadership, the Force Multiplier for Innovation in Organizations. May I please request Ms. Anuradha Razdan to felicitate Mr. Suresh Narayanan, Chairman and Managing Director, Nestle India Limited. Please, sir. Yeah.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. And while the weather is not our friend today, thank you so much for all being here. They say that you can invent alone, but you can't innovate alone. And innovation is not so much, it's not a process, but really a mindset. And it's a collective of behaviors and mindset where, you create a culture where ideas can thrive. And no culture change, no cultural transformation can happen without leadership leading the way. And that's why this conversation that we are going to have this morning is perhaps the most important conversation, because leadership is indeed the force multiplier for innovation and transformation. And who better to have this conversation with than an industry stalwart who's role modeled this through his nearly 4-decade-long career. It is my absolute privilege to introduce our guest today, Mr. Suresh Narayanan, Chairman and Managing Director, Nestle India. Please, can we have a big round of applause? Now, Suresh is no stranger to many of us and has had a very rich and exhaustive experience across the FMCG industry and held senior management and top management positions in India and globally. Suresh joined Nestle in 1999 after a career in Unilever and Colgate. And went on to he was the head of executive vice president for sales for India and Nestle, and then went on to hold many leadership positions across Southeast Asia and North Africa, Middle East. As managing director for Singapore, he turned around the business in the midst of an economic crisis and was awarded a Medal of Commendation by the government of Singapore. He was at the heart of leading the Nestle business in Egypt and North Africa through Arab Spring, and then went on to lead the business in Philippines before coming back to take over as head of the India business, where under his leadership, Nestle has won much recognition for consistency of performance and corporate governance. Suresh himself has had is a much celebrated leader and was honored as the Forbes India Leadership Awards in 2017 as the best CEO in the multinational category. He was recognized among most valuable CEOs in 2019 by Business World and was awarded the best CEO by Business Today in 2019 and 2020. Now, here are two awards. The list goes on, but two that I think are really notable. He was honored as the Entrepreneurial CEO at EY Entrepreneur of the Year in 2020, and finally was recognized amongst the top 101 male gender equality champions globally. Thank you for being with us, and may I please invite you. Quick word to our audience before we kick it off. Suresh, a quick word to our audience before we kick it off.
I'll just request you to fill.
She has felicited me enough. Thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you, Anuradha, for the very kind words of introduction. It is a privilege for me to be here today to discuss with you a topic that is still evolving and still a lot of work needs to be done. And I'll be happy to share whatever few perspectives that I might be able to bring to the table. So over to you.
Thank you, and we'll dive in straight. I'm going to ask Suresh a few questions, and then hopefully we'll open it up to question and answers from those of you in the room. Now, Suresh, you are no stranger to innovation and transformation, and in fact, you're known by many as the turnaround man because you have helped and led the Nestle business through crises at many junctures of your career, whether it was the economic crisis in Singapore or war in during Arab Spring, or closer home, the Maggie crisis when you first took over. Equally, you have had experience across a number of organizations and seen a lot of different leadership styles in play. So I have two questions. One is, could you please sort of share with us a few crucible experiences that have sort of led your leadership through innovation? And the second is, did you see any common themes across the different organizations, and what stuck with you?
Thank you, Anuradha, for that question. Look, I've been, I must say that in a long 4-decade career, I've been blessed to work at 3 outstanding companies. Started my career in the company that employs you as a young trainee, and had good experiences there in terms of my formative years as a manager. And then briefly worked at Colgate-Palmolive, another outstanding company, and then of course at what is the best company for me, which is Nestle. So I've been truly blessed to be at 3 companies. And if I were to look at, I think it was rightly said by Mr. Mahapatra, and also at the theme of the conference on leadership and innovation. I think, as the Irish say, the fish rots from the head, and also the fountain also begins from the head. So in both ways, you can either have a good experience of innovation by sound leadership. And what does leadership do? I think it does a couple of things, irrespective of geographies, irrespective of the economy in which you're working in. I think I call it the 5 C's. And the first C is setting the context. I think the innovation must have a context, must be interwoven with the purpose and values of the organization. Second, the task of the leader is to ensure that he curates a culture of innovation. That is easier said than done, but it is. The fact is that truly successful companies have an innovation culture that is embedded for a long time, and is sometimes the best ones are leader neutral, which means the leader changes, but the innovation platforms continue to be as robust. The third one is the construct, which is really putting in the people, process, and the reward mechanism for innovation. The fourth one is commitment, and I think commitment is probably the most difficult aspect of innovation, because if you are there for the long haul, then your actions must speak to that commitment. And I mean, as an example, I mean, I have the privilege of being on the team that stewards one of India's best known brands, Maggi. And Maggi noodles made a loss for the first 10 years. Right? I salute the leadership of the company then for having supported this brand. I can't think of very many companies which would say 10 years, make a loss, and still I persist with it. I think the longer term vision of the company, of Nestle globally, has really helped. We've been a long term thinking company, been around for a long time. And all the vision has always been 5, 10, 15 year, and rather than 2, 3 and 4-year perspectives. So commitment is important. And the last one, which I believe is neutral across cultures, is to calibrate. How well are you doing? And to really see for yourself in all transparency, putting the fish on the table, as it were, whether there has been genuinely a successful moving of the dial? Has it been cosmetic? Has it been a lot of wind that has been blown, but nothing substantive that has happened? So these five C's, as I call it, starting from the context, culture, construct, commitment, and calibration, would really be some of the essential principles in managing innovation.
Thank you. Thank you for setting out that very holistic framework for us. I want to switch gears a little bit to what's happening in the Indian ecosystem today, where, as we all know, that India has become a home to startups and one of the, I think, the third largest ecosystem of startups in the world, only next to China and the US. And while we all read about how startups and new ventures are poised for innovation, what do you think is the challenge and opportunity for large corporates?
Well, I think let me kind of uh, recast the answer to really look at what are the strengths that large corporates bring to the table on innovation, and what is it that they need to be mindful of as the new generation of entrepreneurs come in. I think large corporates, the ones that have been around for a long time, bring a strong sense of purpose and values to what they do. I think whether it is your organization or mine, I think when you have a more than 100-year history of a consistent track record across different geographies, categories, continents, etc. You do it because there is a certain purpose and values that gets enshrined in the organization, and that gets transmitted. Whether it is Switzerland, or whether it is India, or whether it is Indonesia, this gets transmuted. I think that's a core strength. The second strength is staying power. The fact is that innovation platforms um, give the opportunity to the company for future growth, but has seldom jeopardized a company's existence unless they are kind of betting on the bank, which is a very different kind of context. So the second is really staying power. The third is a systematic people process, by and large, that they are able to build in over a period of time. What they need to get over is what I call the fear of failure. Right? The fear of failure is something that is quite strong in large corporates. You don't want to have egg on your face. A young entrepreneur who's starting his journey and is having 2.5 people to work for him, with passion in his heart and fire in his belly, is a very different entity. For him, it is, or her, it is, I need to succeed and I will succeed. The large corporate view is, I need to not fail. Right? And I think that is an element that corporates need to put in order to be successful. The fact that failing to succeed is in fact sowing the seeds for succeeding to succeed is something that we need to understand in the current context. And if this is something that corporates were to embrace, and really this starts with leadership. So at Nestle, for example, I mean, post our Maggie crisis, one of the things that discussions we had was, look, as a company globally, we have more than 2,000 brands. There has been no family planning in our brands at all. So if you're a man, woman, boy, girl, dog, or cat, we are things to feed you and nourish you all through your life stages. That's what we are as a company. We focus on that, and that's what we do, and we do that fairly successfully. So, how can we translate that vision into India and make that happen? And I think one of the things that happened there is the same processes, the same brands, the same kind of product propositions. But the difference was that now the leadership, starting from me, said, it's okay to fail. I said, what's the worst that can happen? You'll blow up a couple of million. I'll take the rap. Any case, I'm at a stage of my career in life that I'm willing to take a few risks. What's the worst you can say? You can say that, look, Suresh Narayan was a disastrous CEO. Fine, okay. But if you unleash the forces of innovation within the organization, today we are innovating in the company at 3 times the pace that we were innovating 5, 6 years ago. We have launched 90 to 100 new products in the last couple of years. This would have taken us a couple of decades to launch. Nothing has been obviated. Same processes, same brands, same propositions, same testing mechanisms, but teams have been recalibrated. And what we have tried to walk the talk, and I do it personally, I never castigate anyone for a failure in this company. And never have I stopped anyone's progression because they have failed in a project. But that's the example that you have to set in an organization. If you don't set that in the organization and then keep talking about adaptability and agility and articulation and all that is all fine, but it doesn't lead you. So walking the talk means the leadership has to put some of this into place.
I think that's a really amazing response, Suresh. And while like you said, what have I got to lose? I'm at a certain stage in my career. But how did you institutionalize this for teams? How did you make it okay for them to, this recalibration that you talked about? Was it leadership behavior? Were there all the processes, ways of working? Can you elaborate a little bit about
Look,
that?
I think what was done was that we defined for each of our categories uh, what is our understanding of the consumer journey. I think that's important. There was a time when innovation was technology centric, right? You had a certain technology of food processing, of protein cultivation, of milk production or whatever, and you decided to take out products with it, right? In the context of your company, I remember, since I have a little bit of familiarity, the whole saponification of fats was the big kind of technological theme and around which you will generate products. Today, it is the consumer who leads the way and not you leading the way. So I think understanding that the consumer proposition has been a very strong element. So once that gets defined, then the teams are mandated in terms of the innovation platforms that they choose. Then there are resources that are put behind it and commitments made. There are people, and we try and see that we put some of our best and brightest behind these jobs. And the fifth element is really to put a kavach around them, a protective layer around them, saying, you guys just get ahead and get this going. If it succeeds, all kudos to you. If it fails, it's fine. And I think if you do this over a period of time, and I'm blessed, like I think many companies represented here in this room, 78% of my organization are millennials. They're young people. I mean, I'm the last of the Mohicans, right, as it were. So with very young people, you just have to give them the signal. I don't think you have to do too much of teaching and saying, evangelizing. If they see you behaving in a particular way, they pick it up, and they have the ideas. The digital ideas, the marketing ideas, the social media interfaces, the consumer interfaces, the technology interfaces, the technology platforms. They have all the ideas coming up. The role of the leader is to be like good soil and like good fertilizer, allowing them to thrive. And if you allow them to thrive in a non intrusive manner, and you keep your ego at the door. So if I have to do that, I have to put aside 40 years of experience and say, look, that is not entirely relevant to the journey going forward. I can be the shepherd, but I'm not going to be the guy who is going to determine whether each idea is right or wrong. And I think if you do it that way, it becomes easier. I mean, I give you an example. When we relaunched Maggie, I'm an old school guy. I was being trained to work in the markets and to go to retailers and to do, to greet them and to give them mithai and to, hug them and sell the brand to them. Till a young brand manager in the company said, "Sir, my generation doesn't do this anymore." So I said, "Yeah, but what does your generation do?" He says, "Sir, we go on e-commerce platforms." So that time Snapdeal was around. So he said, "Sir, put the product on Snapdeal." My immediate thought was that, look, should I now insist that saying sorry, but it has to go into the market, or should we say, let's try it out on Snapdeal? Because anyway, what's the worst that can happen? A few packs will get stuck in that platform and not get sold for a while, and we'll find a way of dealing with it. And lo and behold, we put out those packs on Snapdeal, and 60,000 boxes, special boxes, got picked up in seconds, right? In minutes, actually. We had more PR media attention for equivalent to 6 months of effort that we would have done on that one particular day. And how did that simply happen? Because you allowed the person with the idea and who's the consumer and who walks the talk on the consumer to try that idea. And many times in many corporations, it is the leader and the leadership style which sometimes is intrusive, which stops the individual. Some people are insistent. This young brand manager was insistent, so he was able to say, "Fine, to hell with the chairman of the company. I will tell him exactly what I feel like." Different from my time when I was scared to even get into the lift with the chairman, right? So I think generations have changed. But then if your hearing faculties are a little bit more acute, I think a lot of change and a good change can come in the organization.
Very wise words on empowerment, listening, being close to the consumer, and basically letting the people closest to the ground make the decisions. I just want to, take you back to, like you've sort of always been there in the eye of a storm, but when there is crisis, and Ranjan spoke about it, and how that brought out the best of us. But when there is real crisis, like there was an economic downturn or there was war, and I think there is the challenge of, performing the day to day and yet thinking about transforming. And how have you straddled that, and how have you encouraged teams around you to manage both?
Thank you, Radha. Thank you for that question. I am a little bit. I look at my career and I think back. I'm a little bit of an albatross. Wherever I go, either I create a crisis or fall into a crisis. I mean, that's been my calling all through. I don't know. There's something probably there in my horoscope. I need to check and see whether it's made any. So I think on a more serious note, I think crisis demands a couple of things from leaders that's simple but very important. Number one is, in normal times, I'm not saying that this is something that is exclusively for crisis, but in crisis, you need a leader with authenticity. Authentic behavior means to say what you mean and to mean what you say. To not be the perfect Superman, because many of us think that arriving in the corner office means that we are Superman or Superwoman, and the only person who actually knows the truth is our husband or wife, which is truth. But in any case, you think that that's what your invincibility is, what is talked about. So I think authenticity is very important. I'll give you an example of Egypt. When I was there, when I was posted to Egypt, I was told that it is a great place and nothing has ever changed in that country, and it's a very calm place. They said, look, you have a couple of years to retire, but it's a good posting to give guys, because you learn a bit about different cultures and North Africa and stuff. I go there within 3 months. We have January 25th and so-called Police Day, and Police Day transforms itself into the Tahrir Revolution. And here I am stuck, non-Arabic speaking CEO in North Africa, with internet being cut and with tanks on the street, and not able to speak the language, and having to lead a team which is looking at you and saying, "What next?" Right? I think this is the time when the purpose, your purpose, and your values, and that of the organization comes to the fore. And I'm truly blessed to work at a company which has got a strong north as far as its moral compass is concerned. one of the first things that we did was, rather than just look at the business, we said we look at our people. So we had an honest conversation with our people, and I told them, I said, look, we have either of two options. Either all the management committee members, fly out on an aircraft with their families, or we stay here. And number two, either we hunker down and wait for a better day to come, or we decide to engage. If we engage, here are the advantages. If we disengage, here are the disadvantages. What do you want to do as a team? The answer unanimous, and there again, it was a very young team. 70-80% were youngsters at the time. So they said, let's engage, let's do the things we need to do. So I said the first thing would be that I and my team will stay back. We will not evacuate, we will not leave the country. We will stay back and we will work with you. Because honestly, I never felt anything had gone wrong as far as my relationship with the people is concerned. I think when you do that, you release a lot of energy within the organization. Then people say that, look, there is a determination to overcome. And crisis then becomes a huge opportunity at self-validation, at recreation, at re-energizing, and at renewal of the organization. And that's really what happened. So in the 5 years I was there, we grew on average about 25-30% each year, despite the Arab Spring. We invested more in 5 years than we invested in the previous 15 years. And the corporate reputation of the company just shot up. Simple, few things, a lot of people focus, a lot of energy on the business, getting a few things right time and time again, and staying the course, with the leadership putting the shoulders to the wheel. I think those are eternal truths. There's nothing magical in what I'm saying, but these are eternal truths. And if applied in the context of a crisis, I think leads you to a place that's much better than where you started. And I'm glad that it happened that way. Similarly, when the crisis of the Maggie crisis happened here, again, fantastic team. I owe a lot to the Nestle India team for who I am and what I am. And I think utilizing the same principles has led us to be in a much better place than we might have been. And I think that's so sometimes even if you don't have a crisis, try and generate a little one within your organization and see what happens. All of us deserve, pardon my saying so, a kick in the pants. And
Creating a burning platform.
Creating a burning platform. So if it doesn't burn, then you try and incinerate a bit and see what happens.
Suresh, I'm hearing a lot of, empowerment, facilitation, enabling. But when do you sort of know that, okay, now I have to call a stop? And when do you know that, what are the checks and balances, if any, that you've sort of put in place and you found are necessary?
Look, I think it's a very good question. And, I've read somewhere, and I've over the years believed in it strongly. Leadership is not leading others. Leadership is being increasingly confident in yourself. That's what leadership is. It's not leading. 100 people, 1,000 people, or 1 million people, it's fine. But increasingly, if you look at it, managing yourself is a bigger task of leadership than managing others. I mean, in this pandemic, Mahapatra talked about it. The fact of the matter is that as leaders, we have to first manage ourselves. How do we cope with it ourselves? How are our emotions being managed? And please remember that for every leader, there are more people looking at you than looking at anybody else. They may not even look at the political leadership of this country. I don't think that is important. They're important for them is this organization, this leader, this group of people. So I think if you are able to manage yourself and manage your confidence, stick to, in my rule book, there are 3 principles I use. Number 1, if something is in conformity with the purpose and values of this company, and for us, respect, dignity, ethics, honesty, dedication, humility are important. That's why we are who we are as a company. So if it is within the purpose and values of the company, it's fine with me. Number two, corporate objectives. I've been a sales director for a long time. I don't like to miss targets. I hate to miss targets. But at the same time, I like to achieve goals where everyone feels a victor, where people say, we did it, not that because of this man, we did it. I don't think that's important. So when corporate objectives are compromised, I know when to draw the line, and I draw it very firmly, and my team knows it. That this line will be drawn very well. And the third one is to be humble enough to appreciate what I know, and humble enough to accept the millions of things that I don't know. And I think if you are able to do that, you are able to unleash a lot more of energy within the organization. The people are then able to say that, look, we can try new things. We can do different things. We can do it in a non-threatening manner. And thereby you empower and you enable. And this generation that is coming on, and Anu, you know it much better than I do, because you sit in the hot seat of a CHRO. To me, honestly, the biggest challenge of the coming decade is not going to be technology and digital. It is going to be talent. That's where the rubber hits the road. And those of us, and therefore, for me, the HR role has always been at the table, because if the HR role is not given its due importance, and if you think they are comp and BEM managers and facilities managers, then good luck to you, because you will never get the force of talent. And managing this talent today, when recruitment managers are getting headhunted, that tells you that there is a huge heat that is being generated.
We'll have a whole separate conference on that challenge. And exactly like you said, there is a Harvard article that recently said this, the digital transformation will not be won by those who have the best technology, but those who have the best talent.
Exactly.
Now, this downside of being the person asking the questions is that you can't make notes. But absolutely, the three things that you talked about are really, really invaluable. A last question for you from me before I open it up to the audience. If you sort of look back on your journey, and if you have to give yourself advice, looking back, what would you have done differently?
I wish I had asked for more. At every stage of more of myself and more of my people. I think so I'm very content with what I have done, but I'm never entirely satisfied that this is the best that we could have done. So, but with the benefit of hindsight, and that's the only thing that I can look back now in the 40 years that I've been around in the trenches, is I wish I'd asked for more, and maybe then I would have done a few things even better than what I think I've done.
Thank you. With that, I'm going to turn it over to the audience to take a few questions. I know, Suresh, we've already taken more of your time today than we promised, but we can't leave you without a few questions. So anyone from the audience or my committee members, questions for Suresh? Do we have a few mics? I can see a few hands. Why don't you introduce yourself and please grab the mic, whoever gets it first, and go for it. We can hear you.
Or
Anxiety.
anxiety. No, I think innovation, if done with anxiety, leads to false starts and leads to repeated failures. It's a little bit like wanting to keep fit. If you are genuinely interested in keeping fit, you will do the right things in order to keep fit. But if you are anxious to keep fit because, for example, Rajiv Dubey is fit, then you'll end up doing all the wrong things. You'll say, I have to get ahead of him on this, I have to get ahead of him on that. More often than not, innovation becomes a fad. I think innovation's true role is within the context of the organization. And if contextually you can define what the role is, and there could be some organizations that honestly do not need that level of innovation, and it's fine. In a world where we are becoming jingoistic about themes, innovation is in a context, in a certain purpose of the organization, with certain capabilities in the organization. If you don't have the capability, if you don't seed in some of what I talked about, either the context or the culture or the construct, you will have enormous anxiety because you don't have the capability. I mean, you know it. I don't have the organizational capability for it, but I'm still pushing myself to do things that I'm not capable of, and that's when failures happen. So I think it's a combination of purpose, values, of inciting, and also of learning to work with imperfections. In large organizations, that's the other thing I should have mentioned, Tanu, is that we always want to get everything 100% right. In life, there is no 100% right. So I always believe 70-80% there, run with it. It's like leaders. I don't like to appoint leaders who are 100% cooked. There's no 100% cooked. By the time he's 100% cooked, he's burnt. 60-70% ready. Give the challenge. And then it's a task of the leader to navigate it. That is your job as a leader, to be able to navigate it. Why are you paid that salary? Not for sitting in the air-conditioned room looking at the garden. But you're paid that to ensure that the people that you've put in place, they are guided and nurtured and mentored in the right direction, or at least what you believe is the right direction, to make things happen.
I can see someone else ready to go.
Good morning. My name is Rambir and I work with People Sign Consulting. Thank you, Suresh. That was an amazing, inspiring message. It is like reading a full leadership book in 15 minutes. My question is how not to get seduced by success. And this is for the young entrepreneurs who are creating unicorns now. So we see a lot of growth, and then we hear news of firings, etc. So what would be your matches to that? Thank you.
Look, it's a very good question, and maybe it merits another session on how to manage success and failures in life. I have only two simple principles that I've used. I think one is the sanskar and the values that you've been given are extremely important. I mean, I'm personally blessed to have the parents that I had, and I'm personally blessed to go to a school called Rishi Valley, which has given me the moorings of who I am. I never understood J. Krishnamurti when I heard him at school. I thought that this philosopher was somewhere in the air. Today it gets to me. Today I'm able to reflect on it and say, wow, that's what he said, and that's what makes a lot of sense. So I think purpose and values are important. Secondly, the characteristic that is not unfortunately in vogue today, and sadly so, is the values of humility. We don't realize that we have come with nothing and we will go with nothing. So every time when people read these awards of mine, I keep smiling because I say this piece of metal will go. It's not going to be with me for all my life. So I think if you look at it with more humility and less hubris. I don't know whether it is an age stage of life thing. Maybe some of it is that also. I mean, I'm an older person, therefore, having experienced a lot more, you realize that this too shall pass. But if you really have harking back to your values and create organizations, and what my only advice to the few startups that I get to meet sometime is, I say spend your time in not modifying your MVP, but in getting your culture right. If you get your culture right, your business will run for 100 years. Look at all the big companies here, the Tatas, the Mahindras, right? They've all got their culture right. If they got their culture wrong, then they would have been extinct a long time back. So these are the only two things that I would put on the table.
Hi.
Okay. Oh,
Last,
that's the
last,
last question. Okay.
absolutely. Suresh, thank you so much. So much wisdom there. I just want to repeat three things that I took from there. Ego, that's one word that I picked up. Humility again and again. And I think the last piece was probably on spirituality and that, sense of depth and spirituality that I could feel. So thank you for that. My question was more practical and tactical. In a large organization like yours, it has its own set of spans, layers, and bureaucracies along with that. How do you manage to change that underlying culture of then letting people experiment and kind of break those walls which form over time, which then make this very agile innovation possible? So if you could just shed some light.
Yeah, it's a very good question, and it's not easy. Let me put it squarely to you. It's not easy in an organization that has been around for a long time, because there are processes, there are hierarchies, there are egos, there are teams, there are responsibilities, and all of that gets kind of fossilized over a period of time. So they don't, it's difficult to decalcify them as you go along. Some of the things that we have done is to therefore try and uh, and calibrate teams very carefully in terms of putting in the right kind of leaderships in each of the innovation platforms and teams that we have got. I think there's some amount of care that is taken there. I think the whole principle of uh, making making failure as acceptable itself opens up a lot of initiatives, because people then say that, look, this is not, I'm not going to be bitten because of something happening there. I think these two things are able to reduce a lot of the angst. And the third thing which I do personally, I mean, since I sit in the office, is I don't sit in my chair for more than half an hour. I believe strongly in managing by walking around. So I walk around the whole office. I keep chatting with youngsters, saying, "What are you doing?" Then I pick up signals. Sometimes they say, "Yeah, but this is there." I said, "Why haven't you moved forward? It is, sir, it is stuck. Why is it stuck? It's gone somewhere. Okay, that gives me a thought. Come back to the office." So you're trying to constantly work with beeswax and string to be able to recast the organization. And I think this sends a powerful message. I travel a lot, so I am a great believer in the front line of the company. I talk to them, and they tell me, sir, you said this launch will happen last year. We're still waiting. Not yet happened. This can work. That can work. What I like about today's generation is the honesty and the transparency of communication. In my time, we were going in gobbledygooks. By the time we told the boss that something was wrong, I mean, he was tired, not listening to something. Today, they tell you on your face that, look, these are the few things that you need to do. So it's a it's a long process, but I think it's a process that is worthwhile, because as a leader, when you see organizations transform, then you realize that this hard work is worth it. The only thing that you have to be careful about is that you have to be preparing yourself for the next transformation. So there is no resting on your oars. That's the challenge of today.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Suresh, and thank you to the audience. I think, it's never easy to be the first people to take a mic and ask, but thank you for that. Suresh, today you sort of shared with us not only how to lead for innovation, but given us some fabulous insights into your leadership journey. Thank you for that, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was indeed a very informative and impactful fire chat. We're running 5 minutes late, but sir, if you have a few minutes, we'd like to release our compendium report quickly. Ms. Anuradha, you can also stay. I'd like to call Mr. Manish Singhal, Mr. Ranjan Mahapatra, Mr. Manoj Sharma, and Ms. Veena Swaroop